Hi, and welcome to the Let's Talk Melbourne podcast. I'm your host, Vikas Raheja. The Let's Talk Melbourne podcast is brought to you from the city of Melbourne, where we talk to business leaders, opinion makers, influencers, and change agents. This is a space for critical thinking, open discussions, and the big picture. This podcast is sponsored by Construct Mart and Floors Trading and Clearance Centre, your one-stop shop for all the floorings and renovations. Hi, and welcome to a new episode of Let's Talk Melbourne. I am really excited to have today in our studio an industry veteran who has worked across AIA, Mercer, Plum, and is currently in Equity Trustees. I'm really excited to interview him, and I would request him to introduce himself, if that's okay.
Thanks, Vikas, and great to be here. And hopefully, I'll be able to share some experiences and so on along the way. But Andrew Godfrey, as you've introduced me, I'm currently an executive general manager at Equity Trustees. I look after our superannuation business and also our corporate trustee business.
Yeah. And thank you.
Great to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here. Now, if someone had to go to your LinkedIn profile, you have like a stellar career, right? Like
thank you.
Fun on so
very
many
kind
different.
of you to say. Yeah.
Look, I mean, it's true. It's on LinkedIn. I'm not making it up. You can go on Andrew's LinkedIn profile and you can see the amazing roles, and his achievements are quite evident there. I wanted to ask you, what's been so far in your career? What's been the most fun job, or if not a job, or fun piece of project that you've worked on that you've had you've had a blast personally? I mean, it may or may not have been the most, for a lack of a better word, the most important thing, but it was the most fun thing that you did.
That's a great question, and it is one of my philosophies in terms of working life, is that there has to be fun.
Yep.
And my philosophy is very simple for me in terms of I want to be in an environment where I can see that I'm creating value, and I want it to be seen that I'm creating value. You want that recognition. We all crave that recognition.
Yes.
I want to enjoy what I do,
Yep.
and I want to have some fun along the way.
Yep.
And so for me, in terms of my personal levels of satisfaction, I'll get to your question in a moment. But my personal satisfaction is how many of those boxes can I tick on a daily basis?
Okay.
Yep. And if on the majority, we can never tick all of them all of the time.
Yeah.
But if I can tick the majority of them the majority of the time, I'm in a really, really good place. Okay. When I think about what has been the most fun, this is going to sound a little bit boring, but
No, it's not.
what generates the most fun for me is seeing people achieve.
Okay.
And
that's a great thing. It's not boring at all.
Well, I think it's a great thing. And you and I have talked before about leaving lasting legacies.
Yep.
And when I talk about legacies, and the conversation you and I have had it is about the legacy from an organisational perspective, sure. But legacy for me is about watching people's career grow, and the small part that you can have in their career, and seeing them prosper and seeing them flourish and seeing them achieve great things. Yep. That's the fun thing for me.
And I think that is the most important thing for someone to look in a leader. I think like I can speak for myself and all the people whom I work with, I think, or whom I have also worked with, is that when we look at a leader, especially at an exec level, the one thing that we hope for secretly, regardless of whether we want to admit it or not, is that they invest in us and they enjoy us and they enable us to be successful. So I think what you're saying is extremely powerful. Yeah. And that's why the next question was going to be, is that what is your leadership style? Now, before you answer that question, I'm not going to name this person because I might get into trouble. We have this one person where we work with who said he had a man crush on you because he was so happy that you were the leader and you were the new exec at the company, but also because you were genuinely interested and invested in listening to your staff, and that was something which perhaps most people did not experience before, or if they experienced it, they perhaps didn't
Yeah.
register the way it registered when you sort of joined Equity Trustees,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it does. It
yeah.
does.
So your thoughts?
We hear a lot about, the word authentic, and that's how I would describe in terms of what I think is important from a leadership. Just be you.
Yeah.
Don't try and be someone that you are
That you're not.
not.
Okay.
But then live by values as well. For me, the values that I live by is one of respect, is one of trust, is one of integrity.
Yeah.
That, but also that you form relationships and you form bonds with people.
Yeah.
And so my style is, how do I actually get the best out of the people that work with us?
Yeah.
And I'm but one person.
Yeah.
And you'll hear me often say, if everybody's expecting me to be the smartest person in the room, you're going to be sadly disappointed. But how do I create an environment that enables people to flourish?
Yes.
How do we give them the empowerment?
Yep.
They're great people,
Yep.
the people that we work with.
Yep.
How do we create an environment that enables them to be the best person that they can be?
Yep.
And create the value that we know that they can create.
Yep.
And if we can create that environment, understanding where it is that we need to go, what we need to do, what we do really well, what we could really improve upon, having that trust in yourself and that authenticity, I think, is really, really important. And I think it's important to get to know people on a personal level.
Yeah.
I don't think we should shy
From
away
talking
from
to
that.
others.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm really interested in what people do, and I'm really interested in what makes them tick, and I'm really interested in what their passions are.
Yeah.
And you can create that environment then that enables them to be really successful. You can only be successful if all of you are collectively doing what you need to do.
And are you genuinely curious to within the workspace, or is that your nature, and you're outside of work as well? You're intrinsically someone who's curious about people and interested in what people have to say.
It's a really, really good question, Vikas. Thank you. I would say I'm more curious in the work environment
Okay.
than I am on
Yeah.
a personal level, and
Yeah.
I'm sure my wife and kids would confirm that quite vocally. But probably more curious in the workspace. And I think because you get more diversity, you get more different thinking,
Yes.
more different thought than
Yeah.
in generally, I think, the close circle of friends that you might
Correct.
interact with.
Yep.
I think you get far more diversity in a workplace,
Yes.
and that's exciting.
Okay. Now, one of the things which you sort of briefly touched upon, and we sort of spoke about it, was the importance of EQ in leadership.
Yeah.
And if you can just, I mean, we all know what EQ is and its resonance in terms and its importance in our day-to-day lives. But if you could help unpack for someone who is currently, say, in a new leadership role or is aspiring to become a leader, what are the sort of things that, from your perspective and your experience, what are the things that they need to look out for when it comes to emotional quotient, and how they can apply it on their daily basis?
Yeah, I think it comes. Well, be yourself. Be
so
who,
authenticity.
be who you are, and one of the philosophies that I've lived by throughout and I've been really fortunate in my career. I've had some great coaches, I've had some great sponsors, and we should talk about sponsorship and its importance from a career perspective. But I also had a mantra from very early on that I wanted people to know that I was someone that got stuff done.
Okay.
And I wanted people to know that if people wanted to throw me something, they knew that it would be executed upon, and they knew it would be delivered.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've lived by in terms of what I want to be renowned for.
Yeah, it's accountability.
Accountability
Yeah.
is getting that stuff done, of being, and it's often derided in some ways a little bit, but being a nice person that you enjoyed interacting with and had their best interests at heart, or was a trusted advisor to them, or gave them great counsel, or whatever. But I think as you go on your journey and you are experiencing different things, if you can be renowned for someone who executes really well, delivers outcomes, and as you say, is held to account and is accountable for what they do, that puts you on a really strong pathway.
Yeah. And do you think it's also a big responsibility on your shoulders when people trust you with such, and they have such high expectations from you? And how do you then grapple with that?
It's the other thing, and you may have seen it in the time that I've been at EQT. You won't see me hugely up,
Yeah.
and you won't see me down.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important trait from a leadership point of view that
Yeah.
there is that emotional stability
Yes.
that I think is really, really important.
Yeah.
That can frustrate people because sometimes they want to see you up and they want to see
Correct.
you
They want access and they want, yeah.
cranky or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. But I think if you can have that emotional stability, that's what people need, because they're
Yeah.
looking for that stability. They're looking, actually, that individual's got it under control, and someone that I can go to for the right level of counsel or advice.
So that's my $1,000,000 question. How do you manage to retain that emotional stability within you?
It took a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you I've been at this a fair period of time, and if you spoke to people in, going a fair way back, I didn't have that, and it took me a long time to practice that.
Okay.
It took me a long time to switch off,
Okay.
and not to be concerned about that email that came in, or that message that came through
Yeah.
of an issue or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I found that was really important, that I actually did need to get that balance,
Yep.
where I could switch off,
Yep.
and my mind could quickly focus, whether it be at home from a personal perspective or whatever. And
Yeah.
as soon as I worked that out, it took me a long time.
Yeah.
But as soon as I worked that out, I became so much more effective within the work environment.
So would you say you're someone who's constantly self-aware?
Sometimes.
You would have to be, right?
Depends on who you talk to and who you get that feedback from. But yeah, no, I think I am.
I mean,
I
I'm just
think I
thinking, because
am.
if you've obviously have a lot of emotional stability and you're perceptive, and that you would have to be self-aware, I would imagine, to be able to do those things at scale. And it's not just one or two people you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. You're interacting with 100 different people from different teams, and
I think that emotional stability that we talked about, I think that took me a long time. And I think the other thing that took me a long time, which I'm continuously talking to people about, is thinking about the way that you interact with, whether it be people internally, clients externally, other stakeholders.
Yeah.
Think about the way that you are having that conversation, and at the same time thinking about the perspective of how they're hearing that conversation.
Okay.
And if you can do that, you'll find you'll get far better outcomes, because you may not be aware of, if that skill needs to be learnt. I think you need to think about the impact of how you might be communicating has on how that's being received.
Process.
And so I try and do that really, really well. And I'll always moderate the way that I communicate, or change the way I communicate, depending upon the audience, depending upon the environment.
So you're constantly observing and tailoring yourself to different audiences.
Always.
Yeah.
Okay. Whether that be I'm having a conversation with a regulator, whether it be I'm having conversations with a board, whether it be I'm having conversations with colleagues from within our team or outside of our team. I think or just individuals who are going to think and react quite differently.
Yes.
I think you've always got to moderate what that communication style would be and how you would do it, because someone that I might talk to here is going to think about that very differently to
on the other
someone
side.
over there.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. Now, I want to talk to you about sponsorship and mentoring, but also I want you to, if you can help us understand the importance of both those aspects, and also how does one choose the right sponsorship and the right or the right mentor? And from your experience, because you've got.
I've been really fortunate in my career. I've had some wonderful sponsors who have looked out for me, who have guided me, who have provided wonderful opportunities. I think I'd like to think that I had a say in that as well, quite obviously. But the importance of having great sponsors. I always talk about having a sponsor that, at a table where if there are people around a table and they're having a conversation about you, who's banging the table, making sure they're advocating for you, that they're sponsoring you, helping your career. It is a two-way street. You've got to be working hard at that, and you've got to be making sure that you're clear in terms of what your direction will be. Sometimes that's clear, sometimes it's not clear. But having that sponsor is so important in my mind. But how do you get that sponsor? I found, we talked before about getting stuff done and being renowned for execution. That's how my opportunities came, and that's how sponsors came as well.
Okay.
And, I think I worked pretty hard from a relationship point of view,
Yep.
being authentic, as we talked
Yep.
about before, demonstrating that you could be a trusted advisor
Yes.
to those individuals,
Yep.
helping them to succeed.
Yep.
And it was something that wasn't probably, if I was going back a while in my career, wasn't something that I did consciously.
Yep.
It was something that happened, if you like, because of, I think, who I was and what I did.
Okay. Yep.
So I didn't actually probably deliberately go out and seek that. I think you have to do that more
You have to do that more
actively now
Okay.
compared to maybe going past in past times.
Yep.
But I can't emphasize enough how important that sponsorship is.
Okay.
And then the mentoring and the coaching is one, it's different to
Yeah.
sponsorship,
Yeah.
and but equally as important to have those people that you can seek counsel from.
Yep. So you would say trust is the main foundation in both of these
You've
elements,
got the
and authenticity, as you've said. Yeah.
Yeah, but you've particularly, to have that relationship that works and have someone that is going to advocate on your behalf,
Yep.
or someone that is going to guide you, and they could be very different people, a
Yeah.
sponsor versus a mentor and a coach.
Yeah.
Having that trusted relationship
Okay.
is critical, and emphasis on the word relationship as well, of making sure that that there's an open and transparent relationship between parties.
Yep.
Is critical in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other things which I know you're passionate about, and we sort of briefly touched about earlier was your zeal for legacy, leaving legacies in organizations, and the durability of it and longevity of it. How much of pressure do you put on yourself? Do you put any pressure on yourself, or is it something that comes because of your experience and the kind of exposure you've had, it comes naturally to you and you seize opportunities and try to build those legacy elements, or is it something that you strive for?
I don't set out
Yeah.
to do it, Vickers, and I think it's very interesting when I look back career-wise. I started my career as a school teacher.
Oh, did you? I had no idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And what were you teaching? Like what subject?
So I was a maths and PE teacher, which
Okay.
some may find that quite humorous. But so I was a maths and PE teacher. This is going back quite a period of time, and I made a decision to change careers and have a think about what a commercial world might look like, fully intending to go back.
Yep.
But I've been able to carve out a fairly successful career since then. I haven't consciously
it
planned
just probably
steps. It has just
happens.
evolved,
Yeah.
and so there wasn't a real deliberate, I want to be this in X
No, I guess it
period
was
of
more in
time.
terms of like, sometimes it's also about making the most of an opportunity, because where you see that this is something as an example to, I can speak for our team and it's completely fine since you've joined. I think the gap was that people didn't have the right amount of information or confidence in terms of how things should be done.
Yes.
But then once you came in, you can. It's. I know it's a very short time, but I think the one thing that everyone appreciates, which perhaps will become the legacy, is that you gave structure and stability.
Yeah.
I was coming more from that context to
okay.
sort of understand that.
I think that's my role, right? Is
But you'd be surprised. A lot of people don't think that this.
Yeah,
is the role.
we've got plenty of talented, technical-based people in the organisation, and I think my role is to, how do we continue to make our organisation successful?
Yeah.
How do we continue to grow?
Yeah.
And why growth is so important, as you've heard me talk many times, is growth equals opportunity, and I want to be able to provide further opportunities to our people, and the way that we do that is through growth.
Yeah.
And that's what excites me.
Yeah.
And so what do we need to do to grow?
Yeah.
And the company has had a great track record of growth. And as we've talked about, in order to grow that next phase, what are the things that we need to do to
yeah.
make sure that we grow well?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we grow well. I want to make sure that we're providing opportunities.
Yeah.
And through that,
Yeah.
if we're successful with that, that creates legacy.
Yeah.
Legacy both for the organisation, and we're an organisation of 130 years of age, so we've
Yeah.
got great legacy already and
Yeah.
great purpose in terms of what we do.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that we'll create our own legacies,
Yeah.
and with that, we'll see people flourish,
Yeah.
and with that, we'll see people take on broader responsibilities and broader opportunities, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
That's a really good thing.
And the reason I brought this up is because I've had experience with so many leaders and execs throughout my career, and I mean, in my very simplistic view, there are two broadly kinds of leaders that I look at. One is who's delivery focused, like I want to just deliver whatever the mandate is, and there's one, as you said, is legacy building, and that includes delivery plus with long-term benefits and longevity for everybody, for everybody around. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it also comes with a place of humility that you can build legacy, and also with a place of self, being comfortable in yourself, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I do. We often hear it said, just check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think I'm always open to feedback, but I'd
You
like to
are,
think
absolutely. That's why I guess I'm asking. I think
don't-
that's why you're the right person that I could ask the question, because
Yeah.
I've always found you to be extremely approachable, and if I may say so, the humility that you present
Thank you.
is quite. It makes it easy for people to come to you.
Yeah.
And not scared. Does that make sense?
I think I've often said that I'm not a hierarchical person.
Yeah.
I had that criteria I talked about before of value, fun, enjoyment, that being motivated and so on.
Yeah.
I just don't think ego gets the job done.
Just the job done. Yeah.
And I think I'm not one that's going to come into an organisation or come into a team and say, right, the guy's here on a white horse and he's going to save the day.
Yeah.
I want to see people succeed.
Yeah.
And if that is of more importance to me than my own success. You won't hear me talk about a lot of my own success.
Correct. Yeah.
I'll much rather talk about, hey, this person did that, this person did that.
And that's why you leave legacies.
Well, I think so. I just before we.
It's a simple thing, but it's that's how I guess people remember everything about.
Before we kick this off, because I got an email from someone that had just been out to see a client who gave a rap to someone who did fantastic service for that client. How good's that?
That's amazing. Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Not that I did something of driving, whether it be a commercial outcome, whether it be a change that we need to put in place or an improvement or whatever.
Yeah.
But seeing people achieve, seeing people do great things, that's what it's all about.
Cool. Now, I have to ask you this because our listeners will expect me to ask you, is because we work in superannuation.
Yes.
What are the three things in your mind are the opportunities for the industry, and what are the three challenges, do you think? The top three, if you had to sum it up, the three challenges and the three opportunities for the superannuation industry.
You should have given me a heads up on that one, Vigas.
Sorry.
Look, I think we play, in a superannuation industry, we play a really important role in terms of the retirement outcomes for the members that we're looking after. They're, in many respects, their future force. So the need for us to be continually focused on the outcomes for members.
Yep.
And there's very little much more important for that.
Yep.
And we've heard a lot that there's a lot of focus, as there should be, around retirement outcomes and the work that we need to do to improve in that space, how financial advice fits in that, and how do we get financial advice more to a broader part of the population, I think is really,
and
really
affordable
important.
financial advice as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so how is that delivered, whether it be that through technology, whether that be through whatever means, but we have to have a mechanism that is more mass delivered than what is able to be done today. And how do we do that in an environment where a superannuation fund really only has one aspect of a member's situation? The opportunities is, how do we as an industry, the need for all of the challenges that we're facing into in terms of retirement and so on and so forth, how do we make sure that we're still investing enough to be able to put that in place to enable that retirement.
Okay.
That has the necessary, innovation, the necessary use of technology, and so on.
Yeah.
And superannuation, as you know, having been involved, it's pretty hard. It's not
hard,
as
yeah.
it's at a time where clearly there is pressure for fees to continue to decrease, and I'm supportive. It needs to be as cost effective as it possibly can, but that needs to be done in an environment where we continue to innovate, we continue to invest, and we continue to transform.
Yep.
And there's a lot that still needs to be done.
Yes.
To make sure that we're looking after those outcomes for members.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they are in fact, Simon, who's a demographer in Melbourne, I interviewed him for another episode, and he gave a shout out to the superannuation industry because he thinks that this is an industry that's done well for the larger population of the country, and its relevance and resonance across spectrum of demographics. So
and its role in society. Is extraordinarily important, and therefore the role that we play, whether you're a trustee, whether you're from an investments, or whether you're a fund, or whichever part of the industry that you're in, we play a very important role in society, and so that's critical as we do move forward.
So it's exciting times ahead for the industry overall.
No doubt,
no
doubt, and it's not easy though, as we know. But I think it's certainly has been very beneficial for myself, career-wise. And I'd like to think I've given a little bit back along the way as well.
I'm sure you have, and I'm sure you will continue to. And I hope you do that. Okay, so now we're going to play a bit of a fun game.
Right.
So I'll ask you 10. We call it Furious 10. So essentially, I'll ask you 10 questions back to back, and you have to pick one of those.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
and they're fun questions, so it's not like hard
Okay.
ones. I have to refer to my notes if that's it.
Yeah, sure.
To get that. All right. I should wrote it against my water bill, but I had to do that. Okay, so you ready to play Furious 10?
Sure.
All right. EQ or IQ, what's your preference?
EQ.
Scale or efficiencies, what's your preference?
Scale or efficiencies?
Yeah.
Well, you need both.
And if you had to choose one, though?
If I had to choose one?
Yeah.
I would go efficiencies.
Okay. Income or profit?
Profit.
Leaders or founders?
Leaders.
Transformation or innovation?
Transformation.
Netflix or Amazon, your preference, Jan?
Netflix.
Netflix. Donuts or blueberry muffins?
Oh, that's easy. Donuts.
Donuts.
Yeah.
Work from home or work from work?
Work from work.
Mentoring or legacy planning?
That's a great question. Mentoring.
Trust or hard work? Which is the most dependable factor?
Trust.
And who's your favorite direct report? You don't have to answer that.
No, I'm not doing that.
No. I said it myself when I realized, I wish you would, but I might get into trouble if that happens. There you go. We're almost at the end of the podcast. Now, we ask all our guests 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is, what is your anthem song? Is there a song that you go to over the years that you've loved and enjoyed and revisit from time to time?
Well, because we're in a studio,
Yes.
which is about 1 kilometre from Victoria Park.
Yes.
For those in Melbourne know, the spiritual home of the Collingwood Football Club is Victoria Park.
Yes.
And I did jump off the train and I saw the old ground there. So I've got to say my favourite anthem is the Collingwood Football Club song.
I will accept that.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a song, but it's a team song.
Hang on. It is a song and it is an anthem, and obviously my fellow Collingwood supporters out there would agree.
And there are plenty.
There are a lot of us. We're everywhere.
We're actually literally in Collingwood and Victoria Park. So there you go.
We are.
And what is the one thing you love about living in Melbourne?
I've lived in Melbourne all my life.
Yep.
I've had opportunities to live elsewhere, but Melbourne is home.
Yep.
And I couldn't, to be honest, I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. What do I like? I actually like everything about it.
Yep.
There's not much that disappoints me. So, it's home.
Awesome. Well, we're the end of the podcast. Thank you so much, Andrew, for taking the time and coming to Let's Talk Melbourne and talking about it. And if I may say so, in my humble opinion, congratulations on everything that you've achieved. And
thank you, Biggest.
All the best for the next chapter. And I'm sure most of my friends and most people that I work with are appreciative of everything that you're doing. So thank you for that as well.
That's very kind. Thank you.
No, it's the truth as well.
It's still very kind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Vikas.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll come back for another episode with another exciting guest. Thank you. We would like to thank our sponsors, Construct Mart and Flows Trading and Clearance Center, and also let you know that this podcast has been recorded from Image Online Studio in Abbotsford. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on Instagram at Let's Talk Melbourne.